Hello everyone and welcome to the special edition of the Chef's Table series. My name is Carol O'Connor and we are here at the Sons of Italy Lodge in Rosendale. We are celebrating the Feast of the Seven Fishes. This is part 2 and we have Victor Paone and my co-host Joe Murphy who will be celebrating with us on how to make these 3 dishes in front of me. We have Octopus Salad, Stuffed Calamari, and Monkfish Boscaiola, which means forest. So let's bring Joe and Victor over to learn how to make these Italian dishes.
Hi, I'm Chef Joe Murphy, and tonight we're going to present to you the second show in a 2-part series. And this show is based on the Italian Christmas Eve feast. And they call it, I don't know where the 7 fish idea came from.
Feast of the Seven Fishes.
So it is called Feast of the Seven Fish. On our first show, we did 4 fish, 4 varieties, and tonight we're going to do 3. But before we get started, I just want you to know that the Italians say Buon Natale.
Buon Natale.
Buon Natale. The Spanish say Feliz Navidad.
Right.
And us Irish, we say Merry Christmas. So tonight, as I said, we're going to cook 3 fish, and we've chosen octopus.
Yes, we're going to make an octopus salad, Joe.
Yeah.
We're going to make monkfish boscaiola, which is, boscaiola means the forest, so it's going to be with mushrooms, some tomato,
Right.
some onions.
And that's a rustic
Yeah,
dish.
it's very rustic. It's very simple, very rustic, a
Right.
lot of flavor. It's
Yeah.
great.
Okay, and they're going to do the stuffed calamari.
My favorite, Joe.
Yeah, we love it too. And about 3 years ago, Chef Victor made the stuffed calamari, and I wanted him to do it again. It is absolutely delicious.
Thank you, Joe.
So, Victor hails, he's from Gaeta, his family is, and that's really on a fishing
Right,
area.
right. It's a peninsula. It's located in between Rome and Naples.
Yeah.
And one side is fishermen, the other side are farmers. My family was a fisherman side.
Oh, good.
So
the Pecci is in your blood.
you better believe it, Joe.
Right, good. Okay, now octopus, there's always different uses for different fish. I love the Italian way because, as you said to me a week ago, bacala, we can do it in so many different ways.
Right.
And, fresh ingredients, that's really the key. That, fresh, and the Italian way, if you know what you're doing, really brings the best flavor out of ingredients. So having said that, if we could just talk for a quick second about the calamari. I've bought frozen calamari, and some of it's very good. But I've also got some that came from the Orient, and it was smelly, it just tough, thick, it just wasn't good. So if people want to try this recipe,
Yes.
the best calamari, I guess, comes from Point Judith, which is in Rhode Island, and we were able to source that. But they only fish that during certain times of the year. So what would you recommend if you're going to get a frozen calamari? Spanish?
I always look for the local, the Long Island, the East Coast product, Joe.
Yeah.
But ultimately, the best is if you can find fresh. It's
Right,
absolutely the best.
Right. So if you get the frozen, for instance, what's the best way to treat that? You let it thaw out? Do you rinse it with cold water?
Well, what I do, Joe, is anytime I defrost any fish, any meat, any product, I always defrost it overnight in the refrigerator. Okay. The quickest way to do it is in some room temperature water and let water run through it. But the fish, the product tends to flush out because it's just running on the water all the time. Right. Like I said, the best way to do it is overnight in the refrigerator.
Okay,
just let it thaw out nice and slow.
Right.
It won't get hot, cold with temperature problems, and it'll always stay fresher.
Now, on the calamari in particular, Once that thaws out, would you rinse that under cold water? Or
I always do,
Yeah.
especially packaged,
Yeah.
frozen products. I'll
Okay.
always rinse stuff off.
All right, great. All right, so Chef just gave you a tip, obviously a great tip, because, frozen fish, can be questionable. So as Chef just said, he likes it from the East Coast, North Atlantic.
Exactly.
And so you can ask your fishmonger, where did this come from? If you're in a supermarket, ask them, and you're entitled to know. And, when you get into like the scallops, and you want to know, are they dry? Which means it's not dipped in...
They use a chemical. What they do is they'll take a smaller scallop
Yeah.
and they'll dip it in, in the industry we call it soap.
Right.
So they'll take a smaller scallop, put it in this water, this soap, this chemical, and it absorbs it, and it makes the scallop larger.
Larger, right.
They'll be less expensive, but when you saute it, you get that soapy, chemically taste.
Right.
An easy way to tell is that the scallop has to be nice and firm. It can't be all, soft and broken apart.
Right.
Now, there's another regulatory situation, we'll call it, Joe, is they'll call it dry scallops, but
Yeah.
if it's soaked for one day, they can still call it dry scallop. So they'll call it a day soak.
So you're really at the integrity of your fish purveyor.
Ask them, say, is it a real dry or is it a day soak?
Right.
They have to tell you.
Yeah, and there's nothing wrong with saying that. And it makes a huge difference in the end product.
Absolutely.
So don't be afraid to ask. I always look at a fresh fish in the counter. If it has a little, very pale golden sheen to it, I say to myself, it's been dipped.
Right.
It was probably out in a boat that was out for a month. They harvest the fish, they fillet it, and then they dip it and flash freeze it.
Right.
So I always make sure that when I'm looking at fresh fish, it's bright, it's white, it's shiny. If I see any indication of that like light golden color, I don't buy it. So in any event, we should get going. So
Okay.
Chef, what are we going to do first?
Well, first we're going to start with the octopus salad, Joe.
Oh,
all right.
excellent. Yeah.
The reason for that is that the octopus, it takes a while to boil.
Yeah.
So we're going to get that started. We're going to make the marinade, the sauce for it, and we're going to put that aside. Now, while the octopus is cooking, we're going to start cooking our other items.
Excellent.
Sound like a plan, Joe?
Sounds great plan.
Perfect.
And I've never really never cooked octopus. And I know that you can get a 3-pound or a 4-6-pound octopus. They come scaled, generally 3 different sizes, I
Right.
believe. Just keep one thing in mind. That finished product, once it's boiled, it's going to shrink
Right.
and get much smaller. So if you're going to try this recipe, and I encourage you to, just keep in mind that, and there's nothing wrong with getting frozen octopus.
No, absolutely not.
And, that if you're going to feed 10 people, don't get 1 3-pound piece, because it's going to shrink up to maybe 1.5 pounds if you're lucky.
Right.
And then there's another technique also for octopus, isn't there? Grilling it. And
Yeah, you can grill it. You can do it affogato, which means strangled. And what that is basically is some garlic, olive oil.
I'm sorry, when he said strangle, I thought he gave me a weird look. I was ready for him to attack me. You're going to fugali me. But anyways, I'm sorry.
Basically, it's stewed with the spicy tomato sauce. That's also really good. Joe.
Yeah. Now, when you boil this, boiling and braising is a slow technique to
Right.
tenderize meat. Will it do the same with the octopus so that you can get it tender? Because
Yes, it will.
It will.
Absolutely. Boiling it works out well. I put a little bit of lemon in it because you want some kind of acid to break
Right.
the octopus
Yeah.
down. When you do it affogato, you put the tomatoes and white wine.
he keeps saying fugata, and he gives me a queer look in his eye. I don't know. Watch it, please. If he moves in a funny way, jump up and save me.
So we'll start with that, Joe. Sound
Excellent.
like a plan?
Sounds great.
All right, first we're going to get the octopus.
I love octopus myself, and I've been eating it for years. Friends, parents used to do the feast, so
Right.
I just love it.
Okay, when you any kind of octopus, what you want to do is they'll have a beak.
Yeah.
right at the bottom, right where
Right,
the
yeah,
tentacles
yeah.
intersect. And you want to pull that out, okay?
Okay.
Now, when you do the water, you want to put some bay leaves.
Right.
I'll put a little bit of lemon.
Lemon.
Some lemon.
And this is called the court bouillon. And I forgot in getting ready tonight to tell Victor I was going to do the court bouillon just so I looked like I knew something. But in any event, court bouillon is just water, lemon, bay leaf. You could put, do you put parsley in there?
I'll put a little parsley. What I do is I'll put the stems in there.
The stems, which is basically similar to your mirepoix.
Right.
You always use the stems of the parsley. We're not using
black
any
pepper.
thyme right now, but that could be used as well. Peppercorns if you want. But what this does, this court bouillon is used for fish, shrimp, if you want to cook shrimp, and it adds a little bit of flavor to the shrimp. What else would you use a court bouillon for other than fish?
I mean, you could do different types of brines for chicken and stuff like that. But a court bouillon I use a lot for fish, Joe.
Yeah, okay,
know.
right.
So that's going right now, okay?
So the chef host just gave you a tip. Court bouillon? Okay.
So we're going to make our marinade.
Yes, we
Okay.
are.
Now, as I've said before, what I like to do is I don't like to take the fish and add everything, all the products to it. I like to actually take a bowl, put the sauce together, and then add the product to the sauce. So it has a more of an even coating or flavoring,
Right.
okay? Now, with that being said, it's kind of hard to judge sometimes, how much you need or don't need. So I just do a basic condiments, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And then if I need some salt, pepper, more red pepper, more olives, then you just add it in.
Here he goes with the red pepper. Okay.
All right, so if you could hold that, Joe, I'd appreciate it.
Certainly.
Thank you. All right, we're going to get a little parsley. I'm going to take it, just give it a rough chop. Doesn't have to be perfect.
Now, chef just took the stems off here. He's going for the leaves.
Add in.
Okay.
Now, Joe, we're going to add some olives,
Oh,
some
nice.
pepperoncini, little tomatoes,
So this is the sauce for the
octopus.
Oh, the octopus. I'm sorry. Right. Okay.
We're going to take some olives.
Right.
I just give them a rough chop, Joe.
Yeah.
I mean, they don't have to be perfect, just so the olives aren't too big when you eat it. You want the salad, the octopus salad, to be very balanced when you eat it.
Right. This really is a rustic style meal. So when chef is talking rough chop, and he talked about this with me earlier, he wants it rustic. So you will see him in large chunks, which I really enjoy that type of cooking more than, fine dice, medium dice. I just like that texture when I'm eating, so.
So I'll add a little extra virgin olive oil, Joe. Some salt, a little bit of pepperoncino, a little bit.
There we go.
Not too much, Joe.
We're using sea salt, and I've had many Italian chefs tell me if they're cooking fish, they want sea salt because they want to keep a seamless, almost continuity in the flavor. Me,
Right.
I never knew it meant that much of a difference, but
So, Joe, I added some lemon, extra virgin olive oil.
Yeah.
All right, if you could get a little spoon and taste it, see if you need some salt.
I just want to get the leaf.
What do you think? A little more
Excellent.
salt?
No.
Is it good?
Very good.
All right, so we're just going to put that aside, okay? Now, while we're doing that, we're going to stuff the calamari, Joe.
Oh, love the calamari.
Okay. Here's the calamari. Here are the tentacles.
Yeah, what we did
Capers.
was we bought the clean calamari. You can use the whole calamari, but it's just a pain in the neck taking that cartilage out and
Right,
pulling it
skin,
apart. Yeah.
everything.
Now, well, what I did when I purchased the ingredients, I got the tubes cleaned, and then for the stuffing, I asked for the tentacles.
Right.
Okay.
So I'm going to put a little bit of garlic, Joe.
Yeah.
Just a small amount,
Right.
because you need a little garlic, right, Joe?
Absolutely. You know, there's one thing, if you're watching Chef, his knife skills, the tip of that knife is not even leaving the table. And he's got his fingers turned in, and that blade, his knuckles are his guide. So as you develop knife skills, remember, it's about slicing. It's not a chisel.
I'm gonna put a few capers in there.
Oh, sweet. So as he's putting the
parsley.
capers in, I want you to also keep in mind, those are brined, so be careful about how much salt you use because you're going to get a lot of salt. But it just really depends, again, why we say TT, to taste. It's your palate. You know, if you have high blood pressure, obviously, if you're using capers, eliminate the salt. But again, it's up to you.
So now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna pick out a bigger tentacle,
Yeah.
okay? And I'm gonna take the rest of them. Now, as you notice, I'm using it raw.
Right.
I'm not cooking it. Because when you cook it in the sauce, it will cook.
Right.
If you put it in cooked and then stuff it in the sauce, they tend to become less flavored,
Right.
and they'll be a little bit dry and tough inside.
Okay.
Okay?
Yeah.
Now, there's different ways of doing it. Some people put breadcrumbs, some people don't put breadcrumb. I want calamari. I don't want breadcrumbs.
Right.
So that's just a personal preference.
Yeah, and if you do want breadcrumbs, you know, it does absorb some of the moisture, but just use a little bit, okay? And it can help bind it, but it's going to be packed into the tube. So we're using,
Put a little bit of tomato sauce.
yeah, we are using a fabulous tomato. And it was Chef Victor who introduced me to these about 3 years ago. These are grown on the side of a volcanic mountain.
Right.
Is it Mount
Pomodoro de Colina, which means cliff. So how these are grown is that the side of the mountain's clay, so it rains at night, and then the sun hits it, so it absorbs all its water, gets a sweetness from the sun
Yeah.
as it goes over it. It's a pretty special product.
Yeah. Now, these type of tomatoes, you probably will not find them in a supermarket unless it's has a really great specialty section. So my recommendation is find a good Italian specialty store. These tomatoes, even they're expensive per se versus the 16-ounce
Right.
can, but if you want a fabulous sauce, these tomatoes are unbelievable.
So this is a mixture, Joe. I add a little bit of salt, pepper, a little bit of red pepper.
Right.
Okay, I tossed it up, and
Yeah.
we're ready to start stuffing calamari.
Okay. Now, the trick on stuffing a calamari, don't
Don't overstuff it, because they will explode on you.
right.
And you'll end up with the calamari sauce instead of stuffed calamari,
Right.
which isn't bad either. I mean, but you know.
Yeah,
Can I have a spoon, please, Joe?
absolutely. Reason I brought that up because as we were stuffing them for the audience earlier, Chef called me. He said, "Don't overstuff the calamari," because they do blow up.
Right.
And these are a nice size tube for an appetizer. I suppose if you wanted to make this your preemie or your main course,
Right.
you could have 3, 4 of these stuffed.
Oh, Joe, I'll have a dozen. But anyway. And you'll have 2 dozen.
Yeah, absolutely.
So now we have some toothpicks here. Where I put toothpicks?
Yeah, get a good heavy toothpick. Don't get those really thin ones because they'll break and you don't want to be feeding yourself or your guests wood.
Now, what I'll do to make them look pretty, Joe, is I'll keep some tentacles.
Yeah.
Now, let me stuff this in. Come on, Mr. Calamari, work with me.
Oh, is that
Now
why
put
you
it in.
separated?
So when I spear it through,
Yeah,
you want to do like a twist,
yeah,
like that. So now when you cook it, it looks like a real calamari.
right.
Okay, I'm going to do a
Excellent.
couple without that.
I just love this dish. I'll tell you, it's excellent. So I hope that people take the advantage of, you can actually rewatch the show. You can go on the Chef's Table Series.tv website, print out your recipe, take your laptop or your iPad down the kitchen and cook with the chef. And then you get to see me again.
So here we are. This one I did without the tentacle.
Yeah,
Okay. So this is what they're going to look like.
excellent. Yeah,
Okay. As you can see, Joe, they're not overstuffed.
Right.
They're just enough.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Now we're going to make the sauce. Now we're going to cook it and make the sauce.
Okay, excellent.
Going to put a little extra virgin olive oil.
Right.
As I said before, first we heat the pan, then we add the oil.
Add the oil. And the reason you like to do that?
So it doesn't break down the oil as much.
Excellent.
We're going to need some garlic.
Now, you're smashing this. Do you just put the garlic in once the
Right.
oil's hot? That gets rid of the gas.
Right. It takes the acid out of it.
Right, so you want this to be very lightly golden. You don't want to burn garlic, obviously. It will absolutely ruin your dish. But having said that, do you just flavor the oil
I
and then
flavor the oil.
and take the garlic
I
out?
take it out.
Yeah.
So you don't get that chunks of garlic and
Right.
overpowering taste.
Right, right.
I know, but then I take it and put it on a crostini and I eat it later.
Right.
Right? Excuse me, Joe.
Okay.
So we're going to make sure we want to get a nice sear of this.
Yeah. Another thing, having this oil in a hot pan before you notice chefs just moving that product around. If that pan wasn't hot enough, the chances are it would stick to the bottom.
Right.
Okay, so you want that. That's sort of a built-in release of whatever product you put in.
So now we have the garlic cooking here, Joe.
Yeah,
You want to get some nice color on the calamari.
yeah,
You want it to get that nice sear.
right. Chef, while you're doing that, I just want to touch back to the octopus for a second.
Yes, Joe.
There's a technique that I became aware of this week. And when you're boiling your octopus, we did not do it for the show, but what do you put in there?
A wine cork.
Right, and what does the wine cork do?
They say it tenderizes it.
Okay. Does it help maintain the color of the
Yes, it will.
octopus? So chef just gave you a tip. You know, save your wine corks if you're going to be making a lot of octopus, and you throw that in the boiling water.
So Joe, I add a little salt. As you can see, it has some nice color.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to add some tomato.
Oh boy.
Add a little more back here.
Yeah. Excellent.
Basically, this is almost the same technique you would use as when you do the octopus affogato. Okay, but you would add some paper, some olives to it.
Yeah.
Little wine.
Now, I noticed you added your wine after the tomatoes.
Right, because I wanted to sear the tomatoes,
Yeah.
and then I wanted the white wine to deglaze the tomato.
Ah, okay, excellent. So he's just talking about deglazing. That means taking all those really bits off the pan and letting that really get into your sauce. It's caramelization.
I'm going to put a little fresh parsley in it, Joe.
Right. You
Give it
notice,
some little freshness.
yeah, chef just
Little bit of
tore
red
his
pepper.
parsley, okay? And it was, again, chef taught me this several years ago. It's breaking the cells or
Right.
opening the cells, and you will get a lot more flavor out. If you were here, the aromas are fabulous.
Thank you, Joe.
Yeah.
So now, this normally would cook up for about 15, 20 minutes, okay? One way to do this is you can actually cook it in a frying pan,
Yeah.
and then you can put it at the oven at like 300
Yeah.
and let it sear. It actually cooks great because you get the heat from the top and the bottom. And
Wow.
it comes out fantastic.
Excellent. Yeah, you know, and that's a technique you'll see in professional kitchens, not only with the stuffed calamari, but even on beef, steaks, pork chops. They're going to get that caramelization, and then they'll finish in an oven. Okay, so, and it frees up your burners. If you have a large crowd, you know, you can keep it in there, and then you can continue your cooking.
Okay, I'm going to turn this down a little bit.
Yeah.
Okay. Now these should actually cook a little bit longer,
Yeah.
but we're going to present it now, Joe.
Okay, sounds good.
Have a plate, and also a crostini. I always
Oh.
like it on a crostini.
Nice.
Now we're going to do real Italian garlic bread, all right? It's
Oh.
pretty complicated,
Yeah.
okay? They take the bread,
Right.
they toast it, and they put fresh garlic on it, Joe.
Yeah, just give it a good rub.
That's Italian garlic bread, okay?
yeah,
There's
right.
no mozzarella, there's no oregano, there's no cheese, there's no
Right.
Parmigiano, there's
Right.
none of that, Joe.
Hey,
okay?
hey, no cheese with fish.
Right,
That's a
right.
number. Never use cheese with fish. Unless Victor isn't looking. Me, I like a little cheese, but whatever.
So what I'm gonna do, okay? See how the sauce tightened up?
Yeah,
It's nice and rich looking.
Yeah.
Okay, you can put that however you want. First, I need to take the toothpick out. You always want to take the toothpick out.
right. You know, Chef just gave us a really good tip, and I don't know if our audience here tonight picked this up, but for the viewing audience, I just want to recap something he said. Why no cheese on fish? You don't want to overpower it. And that's the term he just used with his sauce. So the sauce really, oh, that looks absolutely beautiful.
Thank you, Joe.
And we're not, and this is really a great lesson for Italian cooking. You don't want to overpower
Right,
anything.
everything has to be very balanced.
Yeah,
Not too much garlic, not too much oil, not too much anything.
not too much hot red pepper.
Well, that's different, Joe.
Yeah,
That's a different rule.
right. This looks so good, and if it was cooked a little longer, I'd sit here and tease the audience. And
That's why I
eat
didn't
it.
cook it too long, Joe.
Thank you.
We have a show to do, Joe.
There you go. Okay.
All right, I'm gonna put the, Joe, can you hand over the other frying pan, please?
Certainly.
Okay, so we're gonna do the monkfish boscaiola.
Oh.
Boscaiola means the forest, so there's gonna be mushrooms in it. Some people put thyme, some people put sage. For the purposes of the monkfish, is I left it kind of simple, okay, because I wanted to really bring out the flavor in the monkfish, okay?
Right.
Some people use porcini, hen of the woods, shiitake, they'll use everything in this. I mean,
Yeah.
you can do whatever you want with this,
Yeah.
okay?
And again, this goes back to what we just discussed. The Italian way is you can take a dish and you can change it and give it a whole totally different character. And monkfish, if you look at a whole monkfish at a fishmonger in your supermarket, not that you see them that often, but when you do, it's not a good-looking fish.
No, it's pretty ugly, Joe.
Yeah.
It's got a big head, a big
Yeah.
ugly head, and a small little tail. In Italy, we call it the pescatrice,
Ah, that's
which
what I
means
thought.
fisherman.
Yeah.
Okay? Because what they have, it's a really cool fish. It sits there very still under the rocks, and it won't move. Then on its head, it has like a little fishing rod kind of thing. That looks like a worm, and it like shakes it around, and then when the fish comes for it, it jumps at the fish in a split second, and then it's like seconds.
Wow. Monkfish is a very hardy fish.
Right.
It has fat in it more than you would find in a haddock or a cod, but it's absolutely delicious. So,
Fantastic. I love it.
yeah.
All right. So there's our monkfish, okay? This fish probably had a head this big.
Right.
As you can see, there's like a membrane,
Yeah.
okay? We want to peel that off, all right? What we'll do is pretty much like skinning a fish. As
Yeah.
you can see,
Excuse
there's
me,
the
Chef.
membrane.
I'm just going to move these handles so we get
Thank
a
you, Joe.
really good shot.
I'll turn that down a
Yeah.
little bit, okay? And you can see this membrane.
Yeah.
You want to take that off because it's
Okay.
tough. So basically, you want to flip it upside down, and as you would skin a fish,
Yeah.
you just want to ride the knife on the bottom.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of tough, so
Yeah.
see how it just kind of strips off?
Sure. Wow.
There
That's,
you have it.
there's a great tip for you. And I actually saw this technique when we did a sushi show a couple of years ago. You start and just hold your knife and then just keep wiggling
Just
and
comes right
pulling,
off.
and then you'll take off. You can take the skin off a fish or the membrane off of this.
All right, so Joe, I'm going to cut it into small bite-sized pieces.
Yeah.
Now I'm going to cook this with pasta because I like pasta.
Right.
Okay. Now you can do this. You can cut in thick medallions, use the same style recipe, and it can be a main course.
Wow.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm going to mise en place this. Right. There's the fish.
Yeah.
We're going to need some mushrooms.
Right.
Joe, you like mushrooms?
I love mushrooms.
All right, we'll put a couple extra. Okay. Again, the mushrooms, I'm not slicing them too thin.
Right. You're not slicing them too thick.
Too thin.
Too thin. Okay.
they're
Yeah. We
About a
want.
quarter of an inch.
Right.
All right, you want some onions?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Tomato. Beautiful vine tomatoes.
Yeah.
We don't want too much of this, Joe.
Right. Again, these are all rustic cuts.
Again, this, I mean, you just chop it, that's
Right.
all. Maybe ½ inch.
Yeah.
The way I do this is I like to see everything in the sauce, so I'll use some whole tomatoes. But you can put, you know, the cherry tomatoes. You could put pelate. I can't think of the word in English. The canned tomatoes. I mean, you could do it any way you want, you know. But like I said, I like to do this chouet, nice and quick. Great. It'll take about 1.5 minutes to cook this when you're done.
Excuse me. Chouet?
Yeah, that means quick.
Quick. Oh.
Like cooking quick.
So, chef just gave you a tip. Chouet. Or chouet.
Chouet. I'm gonna put some oil.
Yeah.
This I'll put a little extra oil because I want that olive oil flavor and I just like it.
Yeah.
So like I said, when you cook, you can do it any way you want. You want more oil, put more oil. You want more tomato, more tomato. You want to put parsley, put parsley. You want to make it spicy, different mushrooms, you could put capers, olives, whatever you want in this. So I want to get a nice sear on this. I'm gonna put the onions in first, just to cook some of the acid out first.
Yeah.
Put the fish in.
Now on the fish, are you trying to get a little color on that?
Yes,
or-
absolutely.
Now, chef, when you're using a fresh fish,
Yes.
is it wise to pat it down with paper towels to dry it?
Absolutely. You don't want it to be too wet. See, you can see the golden color coming
Yeah,
along?
yeah.
All right, and the acid's cooking out of the onion. So you want this to be spread out a little bit.
Right. So when we pat the fish dry on a fresh fish, what does that do in the cooking process?
Well, what happens is that when you sear it, as you notice, I don't put any flour or anything so it doesn't stick. It'll give it that nice sear and won't let it stick. If you add water, there'll be too much water in the product. It tends to stick and, you know.
Yeah.
Now, the great thing about monkfish, it's a very hardy fish.
Right.
So you can really cook it. It isn't like working with a cod or a haddock or a
Right.
hake or anything that has a little bit more delicate texture. Now, as I usually do, as I always do, I season as I go along. All right, put a little salt.
Yeah.
How's that looking, Joe?
Excellent.
We're doing all right?
Yeah, you're doing very good.
Thank you.
Okay.
So I'm going to add the mushrooms.
All right.
Now, I want the mushrooms also to get some color and some
Yeah.
sear. Okay? The reason why I put the mushrooms later is that the mushrooms contain a lot of water.
Right.
And you don't want that with the onions and the fish because then it starts to boil it instead of cooking it.
Right.
Instead of sauteing it.
Right.
Let that sit.
Well, you know, the audience here can certainly smell what's happening here, and I got to tell you, it's the mushrooms, the onion, the fish,
A little parsley.
a little fresh parsley.
Well, like I said, some people add some thyme to this. They add
Right.
some sage, whatever you like.
Yeah.
The monkfish, the way I'm doing it, the monkfish is, like I said, is a little bit hardier, so it'll hold up better with the pasta. But you can do this with the haddock. You can, I mean, I've done this everywhere. I mean, I've even done this with the bacala. After you boil it, you put some flour and you fry it, and then you make the sauce and put the bacala right in this and put it in the oven for a few minutes.
Right.
Comes out fantastic.
Yeah. Yeah, actually, the first time 3 years ago when Chef did Feast of the Seven Fish, you did the bacala that way. You made it in...
Oh, right, I did make
yeah,
it, right?
yeah. And, you know, in the American style, I've come to learn, talking to a few Italian chefs, of course, every, you know, regions are different and there's a little bit different styles and technique. But they don't, over here, they'll use breadcrumbs. In Italy, you're not using...
Use very little.
Very
You won't
little,
use it.
right. You just dip a little flour, you get that golden color, right?
Right. As you can see, you have a nice saute color, okay? I'm gonna drop a little wine in there. A little bit more. Joe, you like wine, right?
Oh, yeah. And we're going to deglaze the pan. Chef told you earlier, okay? So it's going to get all those bits and the caramelization up into the sauce.
And we always want to cook the alcohol out of it.
Right.
Okay, we want the flavor from
Yeah.
the wine. If you use a fortified wine like Marsala port, sometimes it'll flame, depending on the alcohol content, okay? But you really want to cook that acid out. A tip, when you cook with Marsala, port, sherry, any fortified wine, you never want it to flame. It'll become bitter because the flavors in those fortified wines will burn and become bitter.
Ah, that's a great tip. Boy, this looks and smells so good.
A little more tomato, Joe?
Oh, absolutely. I just
Not too much,
absolutely love tomato.
Like that, that's good, right?
And I want to talk about the rustic style tomatoes. We're not going to cook that down into
No.
a sauce where it's going to break the tomato down. You want some texture, is that
Right, we
correct?
just want to cook it through.
Okay.
How's it look, Joe?
It looks
Does
fat.
it work?
Yeah, absolutely. I just want to make one comment. I've never met Victor's mother, but I've met his wife a number of times, and thank God for his mother and his wife because they taught him how to cook. Is that right?
Joe, you have to give me a little credit. Yeah, right. Now we're going to let these tomatoes soften up a little bit.
Yeah,
We don't want them to be completely raw.
right.
So I'll just break them down. You don't want it to become too saucy or too watery.
Right. A quick question, Chef.
Yes.
Back to the octopus.
Yes.
We've had it simmering here.
Right? Actually, we're going to check it right now while
Okay.
that's cooking, Joe. I want to go through and I want to see if the tentacle, see if they're tough. Usually a fork can go right through it when they're ready.
Yeah.
Okay? That needs a few more minutes,
Okay.
but that's very close.
Yeah.
I mean, when you cook it, you want to tenderize it, but it's going to have some texture. You don't want to pulverize it. You
Right,
don't want it to turn
right.
into stringy mush.
Yeah.
Now, as you can see, the sauce is starting to get nice and tight.
Yeah.
It isn't too watery.
Right.
Joe, can you taste the piece of fish? Make sure it's okay.
Oh,
Just put it
I
up quick.
was waiting for you to ask.
Watch out, it's hot.
Oh, yeah.
Don't get burned, Joe. Some salt? Is it perfect?
Perfect.
All right, that means it needs more salt. You don't like salt. Yeah, right? Yeah, Joe, we need some of that too.
Good. Good. You know, if you weren't raised with these hot peppers, it kills you. I have been increasing my consumption
Yeah,
Just-
cooking with me, you have to, Joe.
all right, just to prepare myself for cooking with you again, right?
All right, so we have our pasta here.
Yeah.
Okay, now, this is cooked pasta, okay? Normally you would cook it and it'd be warm and what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna saute it in.
Right.
Whenever I do a pasta, especially a single portion, I mean, there's a little bigger than a single portion. There's a single portion for you and I, Joe. But
There
the
you
average
go,
person
right.
is not. Okay? I want to saute it because, like I've said before, pasta is basically a packed sponge. Cooks through water absorption. Now, that same theory applies for when you're sauteing and cooking with the sauce. The pasta will actually absorb the sauce and taste better.
And pick
So
up
it
the
doesn't
flavor.
taste like,
Yeah.
pasta with,
Right.
with sauce on it.
You know, I learned a lesson the hard way, and usually a lot of chefs, that's how they'll learn. But
Excuse me.
a couple of years ago, I made pasta. I had a big family, friends, Christmas function at my house. So I made the pasta the day before. And I always get that pasta just as it's becoming al dente. Because as Chef just did, you're gonna finish it in the sauce, so it's gonna cook again. But what I want to point out to you is something that's really an important thing. I put olive oil on that cooked pasta, just so that it wouldn't, if it sat in the refrigerator overnight, it wouldn't turn into a big lump. I made my usual red sauce, everything looked great. I tasted the pasta, I said, ooh, what happened? I was telling Chef, never put oil on pasta,
Right,
unsalted butter, because it does give you a rancid taste.
right. It'll absorb the oil and become rancid.
Right.
You'll
So-
have an aftertaste.
Right, so if you're gonna pre-cook your pasta, a day before, just to cut down on your workload for when you're gonna actually have the party, use unsalted butter, okay, on that hot pasta, and just mix it around.
That's it, Joe.
That's
There you
it.
have it.
Excellent. Okay, so now, all we have to do is get the octopus, and my hands are very,
Delicate.
thank you. Well, I was going to use the word tender, but in any event, hopefully,
Root this over there, please.
hopefully you have the Teflon hands. Now, normally, when you would be cooking this octopus, you'd let it cool down before.
Absolutely, you'd put it in the refrigerator.
Right, but we're not going to be that kind today. We're going to have you show the people how to make this while it's hot. So, just so that we can show you the final technique on mixing the octopus. So, what we're going to do is we're going to use a side towel, okay? Obviously, you want a clean one, and that way the chef can hold the product without burning his hands.
All right. I'm going to wipe this down a little bit first.
Okay, great. Now, I don't know if you remember how large that was when we started this, and it just continues to shrink, so. Oh,
what
what
I'll do
a
is-
show off. No towel.
What I'm going to do is I'm going to slice this somewhat thin.
Yeah.
You don't want the chunks to be too thick, Joe.
Right. Yeah, because as you eat this, it has a very firm, what I call bite, so, you want to get it, you don't want it like mush, but you want it small enough so that you can negotiate.
Absolutely. So, Joe, we have little condiments we have here.
Right.
All right. Now, this should be cold.
Right.
We would add it in. Mix it up.
Delicioso.
Joe, can you grab a spoon, taste it, please?
Certainly. Oh, you want me to do it?
Yeah, Joe.
Okay.
You're the professional.
Oh, yeah.
Watch out, though. It's hot. Don't bite too hard. Some salt?
No.
You sure? I don't believe it, Joe.
Delicious.
Thank you. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a little bit of mixed green salad under it. Just a little bit. Lemon's okay?
Lemons.
Salt is okay.
Excellent. And this salad's not dressed. You're going to dress it now with the,
Right.
that it's already mixed.
And put a little extra. I like the olives, Joe. So I'm gonna put the olives. I like the octopus too. So I'm gonna put that too.
Wow.
Now right there, I'm just gonna serve it with a little lemon wedge.
That is delicious and nice and tender too.
We'll do a nice little wedge. What do you think, Joe? Just something like that. Real simple.
Beautiful.
A little parsley too, right? We need some
Yeah.
parsley. There it is, Joe.
Excellent job. Okay, I got to make a little bit more room over here. All right. So, there you have it, folks. Feast of the Seven Fish. And we really want to thank Chef Vittorio Paone, a.k.a. Victor. And he's a great chef. And I was talking to 3 Italian guys today in the specialty store. And they said, well, so what do you do with this or that? And I said, well, you know, we're going to do Feast of Seven Fish. I have a great chef. And I said, he's from Gaeta. And one guy says, Gaeta, Gaeta. The other guy goes, Gaeta, oh, the fish, or this or that. So, you know, it's all about the fish and the fresh vegetables.
Right.
So this is fabulous, chef. And I want everybody to remember that this show is produced by the Chef's Table Foundation. And while we love doing this show, our ultimate mission is to support U.S. homeless veterans, and we are going, hopefully, be sending 5 candidates to a culinary school in Boston in 2015. So we really appreciate your support and watching the show. We always appreciate having an audience here. And as far as chefs go, Victor has done some, not only tonight, but in the past, some incredible dishes.
Thank you, Joe. It's
Thank
been
you
a pleasure
very
as
much.
always.
Okay, chef.
Thank you, Joe.
Buon Natale.
Thank you.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's wine pairing. My name is Carol O'Connor, co-host of the Chef's Table series. Today, we have Miguel Escobar. He is our wine sommelier on the show. He's general manager of One Bistro that's located at 4 Points by Sheraton Hotel in Norwood. So, Miguel, what wine did you pair with Victor Paone's fish dishes? He made Stuffed Calamari, the Octopus Salad, and he also made a Monkfish. So your task was to choose one wine to go with all those 3 different types of fishes.
Correct. So, you know, to me, it's the seafood aspect that really speaks to the wine pairing in this case, and there really is no better seafood wine than Albarino. So Albarino, to me, sort of exemplifies what you want a wine that you're pairing with seafood. You know, it's light, it's mineral, it's crisp. Doesn't have that heavy oak regiment that a lot of New World, especially California, would have, or that Chardonnay in the New World gets treated with.
Is the Albarino, is that the grape?
So Albarino, right, correct. So
Okay.
Albarino is the grape. Albarino is from the Rias Baixas region in Galicia. So if you go out towards the ocean, Portuguese border of Spain is Galicia. Rias Baixas means the low fjords, basically low riverbeds. So it's a lot of little interconnected small riverbeds. There's a lot of mussels being grown there and seafood, so they have these mussel traps in the middle of these riverbeds that they grow there. And they grow a few varietals. Albarino is really kind of what they're known for and do best. Stylistically, it's always treated the same way. Stainless steel. This particular wine is aged on the lees for 3 months. So I think as we discussed last time, aging something on the lees gives it a creamy feel. Lees are the basically steady yeast that drops to the bottom in sediments.
Right,
Combining
that's
it with that, sur lie is what the French would call it. So if you do something sur lie, you're basically mixing it with lees, and that contact with it gives it a creamy feel without having to
that's
go heavy
interesting.
on the oak.
Yep.
So you end up with something that is not so sharp in stainless steel, has a little bit more creamy mouthfeel to it, but without treating it heavily with oak. So this in particular is what they would do here. They have fantastic seafood there. They grow these mussel beds in the middle of these small fjords. Rias Baixas stands for low-lying river
Right.
beds, basically. And as with most of Europe, you get the concept of the terroir. The wine is from really with what they have, in this case seafood, is what they do best. So obviously a fantastic seafood wine.
Now, what is that term, terroir? Is that what you just
So yeah,
said?
so this terroir. So there's
Terroir.
different translations, I guess, but really it's a sense of place is what I would like to call it best. It's a sense of place of where the wine is from, and it's the soil, the land, anything and everything that's around it. So it's something you can recreate. So you can recreate, for instance, the water table and the soil type and the
Right.
climate conditions and the weather.
Because that all affects.
Correct.
the
That's all the kind of the inputs that you have into making the wine. So
Interesting.
that whole concept is what makes wine so unique. So you really can't replicate Rhone in California. You can't do Burgundy in Oregon. They
Right.
they both grow Syrah and Pinot subsequently, but you can't really get it to be quite the same because the soil type, the land, all these things that play into it, that whole concept of place, sense of
Exactly.
place, is
Yep.
what really makes the wine so unique, which is what makes wine unique. You can reproduce varietals and styles to some degree,
Yep.
but never really copy a wine identically because of where it's from.
All right, let's try.
I think we should try this wine
yes,
now.
it's beautiful.
Yeah, so this is, as I said, aged on the lees for 3 months,
Mm-hmm.
but for the most part, stainless steel does not see oak. Some of these have been oaked lately for the American palate. They want a little bit more Chardonnay tasting white wine. So unfortunately, a lot of these now are being oaked and a lot more rounded off than they were.
Oh, interesting.
Unfortunately, but they lost sort of the character of a
Mm-hmm.
true Spanish wine.
Oh, interesting.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Happy early Thanksgiving.
Oh, it smells.
So you get a lot of that
Beautiful.
apple, citrus,
Yep.
lemon peel, very aromatic on the nose.
Yes.
And on the palate,
Just the smell, you like, this will go so well with those 3 fishes.
again, crispness, high acid. Most people would associate it something similar to like Pinot Grigio.
Mm-hmm.
Yet much more complex on the Pinot Grigio. But you do get that minerality that people talk about. Again, but melon, green apple, peach
Oh, yeah, this is,
component. Very crisp.
yeah, it reminds me of like a Riesling, I want to say, or a Pinot Grigio. Like, I don't
Correct.
sense any Chardonnay to it.
Right, and the reason you wouldn't sense any Chardonnay, as you put it, is because a lot of Chardonnay is heavily oaked, especially California Chardonnay. So
Correct.
you end up smelling cupcake and tertiary and secondary flavors that are imparted by oak, not so much the grape itself.
It's a gorgeous, I mean, if you could say gorgeous, it's a gorgeous taste.
Yeah, and to me, to explain
love
it to
it.
people, I always say, if you like Sauvignon Blanc, if you like Pinot Grigio, branch out a little bit, be adventurous, try
Exactly.
something different.
Yeah, Spanish wine.
It's also, they're great values.
But yeah, everyone's been great with, everyone's loved the wines that you've chosen. So you're so talented.
Well, I look forward to keep working together and keep using great wines, and more important, bring them out to everyone so
Yeah.
everyone can enjoy these wines.
Perfect, thank you. So everyone, this has been the wine segment of the Chef's Table series, featuring the wine for Feast of the Seven Fishes Part 2 with Victor Paone. So we will see you next week.
Well, what happens is that when you sear it, as you notice, I don't put any flour or anything so it doesn't stick. It'll give it that nice sear and won't let it stick. If you add water, there'll be too much water in the product. It tends to stick and, Now, the great thing about monkfish, it's a very hardy fish. So you can really cook it. It isn't like working with a cod or a haddock or a hake or anything that has a little bit more delicate texture.
The Chef's Table series is shooting on location in cities and towns across Massachusetts. If you would like to suggest your favorite restaurant or attend a live taping of the show, please visit thechefstableseries.tv.